Congratulations on the film. Really enjoyed it. It's there's a lot of layers to unpick on this one. But first question, boring question. When you read the script for the first time, I can imagine knowing who had written it and given what he had written before, that immediately must have sent you perked your ears up and made you want to read it. And then you must have read it and thought, my goodness, this has got a lot going for it.
Yeah, I've known David McKenna for a long time. I met him on like American History X, and I was kind of too young for the Ed Norton part, and I was too old for the Eddie Furlong part, but I really loved that movie, and I met with him on that. And then I obviously loved the movie Blow that my friend Ted Demme directed, who's no longer with us. And I've always really loved McKenna's writing. He's always been just such a cool. And then I met with Nick, who is this Russian cat that I didn't know from anywhere, but I knew he had good taste because he was developing this script and paid for the script, and spent a lot of time nurturing and deciding what he wanted to do with it. And I wanted to be in it before they kind of pulled the trigger on me. And then I got True Detective, and I was shooting that, and then immediately they pulled the trigger on me. And I said, I'll do it following True Detective. Just give me I need at least 6 weeks minimum to put some size on, put like 10 pounds of muscle on. And then, MMA I was familiar with, but obviously needed a crash course in grappling and some stuff that I wasn't too familiar with. And I had great teachers, Chris Connolly, and a lot of great people on the ground in Alabama that are real UFC coaches that, it was just it really all worked out. And in the end, I feel like proud of Nick, because I feel like he worked with sound design and editing and like, I have a hard time picking apart this movie. There's always things in movies of mine that I always wish they would have changed, or they didn't hold on shots long enough, or they cut out too quick, or, just pet peeves of mine. I had a real hard time critiquing this film. I felt like for what this film was, what it was on paper, this is almost a perfect movie, pretty much. It was very hard for me to say anything. And that was interesting to me because that doesn't happen a lot. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of I know you're a very fit person anyway, as we've seen in some movies, and you've trained for a lot of movies like this before, but was this a harder transition into doing it? You had 6 weeks, it was MMA. I mean, was this the hardest kind of training period that you've had in your career so far?
I mean, it definitely was like, okay, we're doing this, so we can't relax at all. There's a lot of other movies like Immortals and, these other movies that I've done in the past where, you just got to get ripped because you're basically not in any clothes throughout the movie. And that's just the design of the movie, which I hated that fucking movie. But anyway, fucking garbage. But anyway, but yeah, no, this was definitely the most full on, okay, I'm this super athlete. I am a champion. I've got to now look the part and be the part. And so, yeah, I went a little more full on than I've ever gone as far as just my eating, my training, going into the cardio and the ring stuff, going into the cage, but not wanting to do too much cardio because I don't want to shrink and lose all the weight that I've now put on. It's just a balance of, I know how my body works, and it's pretty fast at changing. So, either to cut weight or to gain weight, which is part of my job. But I'd say this was a little more intense than normal, but then certain other movies I've done, like Felon and some of these, which was a prison movie I did years ago, there's certain things that have been very complicated physically that I've done, but I've definitely put this on the top 5,
Yeah. One of the things I love about the movie is, obviously there's this relationship at the core of it, this father and son and a family, and then obviously you got the MMA stuff, but not to give anything away, but it felt very un-Hollywood in the sense that it stayed true to the characters, stayed true to how their paths would go, and didn't kind of tie everything up in a neat bow. It has a real kind of rawness to it. Is that one of the things that stood out for you, that it didn't go that way, that it was very kind of rough around the edges, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think my instinct was to try to make him human by the end, and maybe soften him up a bit. And maybe that's just for me knowing Hollywood too much and knowing movies and knowing what audiences look for and all these formulaic films. But this wasn't that on the page, you know, and I credit Nick and David McKenna for really sticking with the original ending, which is show some emotion in the ring, which I did, you know, in that arena. It was probably the only emotion, human emotion I show where you can tell that I'm proud of my son. You can tell that I see his future is blossoming, even though I just almost killed the kid, you know? So for me, you know, I don't know if Cash Boykins is ever going to change. People that stuck in their ways they usually turn away all the good that they bring into their lives. They're usually left with a big boat shit of money and an empty mansion and a bunch of party revelers and hanger-oners, you know? And the truth is the good ones that are in his life tend to not want to be around him. And, you know, I feel like that doesn't really change much, you know? So I really credit my team for leading me away from wanting to soften him a bit in the end. I softened him a bit, but only to that bit, because, you know, I think what makes the movie strong is, and really special, is that it's not your typical Hollywood, you know, I mean, how many Creed movies are, you know, look, nobody's going to do it better than Rocky and Stallone in those Rocky films, you know, maybe in a period movie, Cinderella Man did it great. You know, Raging Bull was great. I kept thinking, like, what was De Niro? What did Bob have to, you know, when he went home at night to play Jake LaMotta? That's not a nice character. That's not a character that you want to be around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of thought about those kinds of things in playing Cash, because it kept screwing with me. I just didn't like the guy. So for me to play this guy, I had to really kind of get into a different headspace. So I probably wasn't the nicest guy while making this movie either. You know, I had a shorter fuse than normal. I demanding. I was aggressive. I was pretty much living this guy, and you know, sometimes I have to do that in order to get it on camera. I mean, it was very different, the opposite of what I was just done for 8 months in True Detective. It was hard for me to kind of lock into this guy, but you know, as soon as I did, I just got through it. And it was probably one of the most uncomfortable performances I've ever had to give, just because I didn't feel any of me really. I felt pretty intense for 2 months, you know? So, you know, then I had to apologize to a lot of people after and say, I'm sorry, I'm not really like that.
You're a puppy dog,
maybe
really.
A little bit. Hey, no, just kidding. Hey, I didn't like that interview. No.
Yeah. I should move off screen, shouldn't I? She slapped me around the face. Thank you so much for your time. Absolute pleasure talking to you, and good luck with the movie. I really enjoyed it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey!